Happy weekend to everybody. I'm Claire Kelly with the Democratic Party of Evanston, and with me is Sebastian Knowles and John Martin. The Democratic Party of Evanston is conducting interviews for both the District 65 and the 202 school boards, as well as candidates for the aldermanic races, the local aldermanic races in Evanston in the 2nd and 9th wards. And again, I'm Claire Kelly with the board of the Democratic Party of Evanston, and this is Sebastian Knowles also, and John Martin is a challenger for the District 65 school board. Thank you. And Sebastian, I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, no, I think that sums it up. I don't think I have anything else to add. Beautiful introduction, Claire. John, do you want to take about 90 seconds to tell our members a little bit about yourself? And then we can jump into some questions.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for having me today. I'm excited to talk to you. Just a little background on myself. My wife and I moved to Evanston in 2015, and we have 2 children that are currently students in District 65. A 1st grader and a 2nd grader. My connection to the community started pretty early after moving here. I was a coach with AYSO, the American Youth Soccer Organization, and then that evolved into a board position in the registrar for a couple years. And then I was the commissioner for a couple years, bringing us out of the pandemic. And it gave me the opportunity to meet and interact with so many different families throughout Evanston, and really experience the great diversity our community has, which is truly something that's quite unique.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, John. And we will jump right into the first question. So District 65 has had to adapt many district resources to distance learning. How would you characterize the provided accommodation?
Did that only freeze on my side?
No, let's see. I'll finish that question for you. So I think
okay.
It froze for me too.
Okay.
Sebastian, you're frozen if you're hearing this. So District 65 has had to adapt to many district resources to distance learning. How would you characterize the provided accommodations, both for the general student population and especially when it comes to disabled students? What changes, if any, would you like to see made to these new programs?
So let me make sure I understand the question. Through the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of remote learning that was necessary, based on the circumstances and the environment at the time. Are you asking if those measures should be continued, or I'm not totally clear?
Sorry, I think we'd like your assessment as to how that has worked, and currently how any aspect of either hybrid learning is progressing, or if you feel it's been successful.
Okay. Well, I think I can start out by saying I think the most important, and I think the way our children learn the best is in person. I think the face-to-face experiences that you gather from being tangibly close to another human being. We're social animals, and I think everyone benefits from that, whether that be students that are in the general education track, or students with special needs as well. Something that I think is very interesting, and I'd be very curious to pursue, is my understanding is currently the director of special education is on paid leave since this past October, and I think our special education is an area that absolutely needs enhanced focus. And is a very important area. So I'd like to understand why, leadership, I think, is a very important thing to see, success in any aspect. So I'd like to understand what's going on with that.
Yes, I think we all would. Thank you. Thank you. And Sebastian, are you back on with us? If not, I'll carry on.
Yes, no, I'm back on. I will
Okay.
leave myself without a camera so I don't drop
Okay.
off again. I apologize for that earlier. And let's start off with the second question. With the district posting declining enrollment numbers and continued structural increases in expenses, what programs, initiatives, or areas come to the top of your mind to look at for savings? How will you ensure that any reductions are made in ways that don't violate the district's racial and educational equity statement and policy?
Okay, so lots to unpack there. I think the way I heard the question is with the expense associated with building a new school, what are the programs most important to save, since programs will have to be cut in order to pay for the new school? Is that a fair synopsis of the question?
I believe this is more just general in terms of the overall budget. So because of declining enrollment numbers, you know, if we're looking to cut any programs or have any savings in the overall budget, you know, how will you ensure that any reductions that are made, you know, don't violate? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, in terms of what I see with the budget, you know, when I've gone through the financial statements, some of the things that catch me by surprise are the expenses that have been going to staff and administration. So, you know, as you said, enrollment's been declining very sharply. From what I've seen, it's almost 20% in just 4 years. But over that same period, we've seen an increase of full-time equivalent employees of about 10%. And we've seen the central office staff increase by 75%. So when students are decreasing 20%, but then we're increasing staff 10%, something's not matching. So I'd like to understand what those positions are, and if we can gain any efficiencies from that perspective. Another line item that stood out to me was the superintendent line item went from $600,000 6 years ago to $1.7 million today. So that's almost triple. Again, you know, it's maybe in the grand scheme of $150 million, $1 million can be seen as a small number. I don't view it that way. I think $1 million is $1 million, and I'd like to understand what is driving those increases. And purchased services is an area that stands out to me as well. It was $9 million 6 years ago, and it's almost $23 million today. So it's another area where expenses and expenditures are tripling, and I don't understand entirely why. I do know that a lot of consultant expenses are included in the purchased services line, and consultants are inherently more expensive than a full-time employee. They make sense in a lot of situations, you know, for short-term purposes, to fill a need or just to get somebody's expertise for a specific project. But they don't seem to be short-term in terms that, you know, those expenses are going up simultaneously with full-time equivalent positions going up. So it just seems like we're just spending more and more. And not only does that not bode well for long-term financial health, it's especially puzzling given the sharp decline in enrollment.
Thank you for that very thorough response. Much appreciated. The district will undertake to build a fifth ward school, reversing years of underinvestment in the historically redline Black community along the canal. How many community engagement meetings regarding the new fifth ward school have you attended? How have you decided to strategically envision the challenge of building a neighborhood school without crowding out historically Black spaces and without creating gentrification pressure?
So great question. Thank you. The fifth ward school is an interesting topic because I think underlying it all I really think that Evanston is a community that every child should be able to walk to school. You know, that's the type of community we are, and it's a shame that that's not the case currently. However, we need to balance that with what's going on in the community as well. So like we just talked about, we're spending more and more money than we have, simultaneously with enrollment dropping. So building a new school when enrollment has just dropped 20%, to me means one or maybe even two schools need to close. So which schools are going to be closed in order to build a new building? And then I just look at it from through the financial lens of, is it more efficient to build a new building as opposed to rehab an existing building, repurpose an existing building? So, you know, questions that have been discussed, but have been moved on from, you know, given the path we're currently on. But that doesn't necessarily, well, anyway. So like keeping that in mind, when you talk about gentrification, I'm not exact. From my understanding, the Hispanic population is increasing in the Fifth Ward, and the Black population is decreasing. Is it? Are you talking about like in regards to the city councilor's effort to maintain the Fifth Ward as a majority ward, or?
So I think it's more about changing demographics with Evanston overall, but given that it would be serving the wards where there is the most highly concentrated percentages of Brown and Black residents. I think the question is directed to, do you see any potential impact that would undermine essentially the diversity of our city, but particularly in this area? So I know it's, I guess, do you see like this Fifth Ward school, any aspect or ramifications of the building and creation of this Fifth Ward school as having any impact, whether it's positive or negative, on that, on the diversity, if you will, of that this particular area of Evanston, which is the Fifth Ward?
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I that's something I think I would just need to understand. I'd like to build things based off of data, and I just would need to do more research.
No, it's definitely, yeah. That's a difficult question for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Sebastian?
Yes, I can ask our second question. Just give me 1 second. Or next question, my apologies. We saw from the governor's inaugural address that pre-K education for every student is a driving political priority for the coming 4 years, with data showing that pre-K education may be crucial in providing equitable outcomes. What can District 65 do to meet these challenges proactively? Where are the pitfalls and state-level mandates that are currently laid out on the district, and how would adding pre-K for all change the distribution of these challenges?
I think I heard 3 questions.
Yes.
The first question is, could you repeat it again? I'm sorry, I just need to break it apart in my head. So what was the first piece? Let's do one at a time.
Sebastian? Okay. All right.
So, yeah, I'm here. My apologies. So what can District 65 do to meet those challenges that the governor laid out with pre-K education for every student, you know, being a priority in the next 4 years?
Yeah, so I think I'm encouraged to hear this question. Pre-K education, I think, is something that is absolutely one of the most impactful things that we can see for closing the opportunity gap. My mother, actually, she was a teacher. She went back. She was a high school teacher when I was little, but she went back and got a master in early childhood education and taught preschool or pre-K and kindergarten for the rest of her career. So just by even having that kind of ancillary relationship has really led me to understand and to believe in the importance of pre-K education and getting students prepared for subsequent years of learning, and for having the exposure into those young minds. Now, in terms of what I can see the district doing, I would like to see the district expand efforts with pre-K. What that means and how that works into existing budget situations is a question that I think will certainly require a lot of detailed work and analysis. But I'm absolutely in favor of enhancing the availability of pre-K preschool education in the community.
Great, thank you. And this sort of dovetails with that question, and it seems that you've done substantial fiscal analysis, understanding that the budget is in essence a blueprint of stated priorities. How do you hold the financial team and administration accountable in terms of expenditures to ensure that it is reflecting stated goals and priorities?
Well, I guess my fear is that goals and stated may have run away from the underlying responsibility to maintain the balancing of the budget. A basic principle of economics is unlimited wants, but limited resources. So there is so much that I think we're interested in doing in our community to make it a better place. However, we still have to deal with the reality of what we have available to spend on it. And if we're spending more than we're taking in, it's not going to be sustainable, and we're not going to achieve those goals if we go bankrupt. So that may be a little dramatic, but I think you understand the point I'm trying to make.
Absolutely. So I'm understanding that sort of fiscal responsibility, that's you would also incorporate that into a goal, keeping a not overspending.
Right, exactly. I think fiscal responsibility
fiscal.
is absolutely a very important goal.
Great. Okay, thank you. Sebastian?
Yes. So could you please take a little bit of time to talk about your opinions of the culture and climate that has been constructed during Dr. Horton's tenure in the last 3 years? Just talk about it overall. What are your feelings on the culture and climate of District 65?
So I think for me, I've grown concerned with the culture and the climate. It seems to be much more antagonistic. There's a lot of vitriol in our community right now. Even within the past couple days, let me rephrase. Cyberbullying, I think, is a very critical issue for kids in this day and age, particularly District 65 as it relates to the middle school. And I don't think that there's any place for it in our community, but it seems to be elevating. I think that our kids learn more from our actions than they do from maybe what is directly told to them. And so I'd really just like to ask our community, to ask our people to join me in talking to each other with respect and ending the name calling. It's something that has been very concerning that I've noticed escalating in the past 2 years.
Thank you. Several years ago, District 65 passed a funding referendum. It was a referendum that the DPOE endorsed. We would like to hear your thoughts on the current state, going back to budget again, on the state of the District 65 budget and current and future priorities. What do you see as the biggest financial challenge, you may have spoken to it, faced by the district? What further actions would you like to see the board take to address the projected deficits? Do you feel that the budget process at District 65 is transparent and accessible, both to parents and the community at large? What, if any, changes would you like to see made to the process?
I think it would be very beneficial to do high level executive summaries that can be presented, made very easily accessible, easily findable on the district's website, to bullet point, what the key aspects are of the budget, of key curriculum changes. And as it relates to things like the budget, just very simple, very basic charts and graphs that can tell the story through a picture of what we're seeing. Some of the challenges that we're seeing can be represented quite easily, showing a declining enrollment line and an increasing employee line. Those things are very directly in contrast. I don't think that most people in our community would think that that makes sense. So by just laying things out in very basic terms and presenting them in that summarized, easy to understand. Listen, I'm a tax accountant for a living, so I work in the finance world. So I like this stuff. I seek it out. However, I think that most people probably get a little bored when it comes to these topics. So I think just making something very easily consumable by anyone would be a huge step forward.
On that note, would you offer to serve on their finance and budget committee?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. All right. And I think this kind of dovetails with that question, if you don't mind, Sebastian. Just how do you hold administration accountable? So, for example, these charts that tell a story that, would be so helpful to residents and others in understanding, would you rely only on administration, or how would you access appropriate information? And how would you ensure such measures like what you're proposing here go forward?
So I think direct communication with administration is absolutely a key piece of that. The data can speak for itself, but there's a story to everything. So I'd like to understand and what intentions were, what goals are, and if certain aspects of that are being missed. I'm a big proponent of having milestones that can be measured against as we're progressing through. So if we're not hitting a milestone as projected, then what can we do to change that approach so that we can, where it's not saying that our goal or our intent is wrong, but perhaps our implementation is not as successful as it could be. So what can we do to change that? I think the viewpoints and the voices of not only the administration, but also that of the teachers and the principals, and providing them a conduit to provide feedback anonymously as needed, so that we can understand what is being missed at that level. The teachers are our face-to-face representation to our kids, so I think they deserve our respect and our support. And if they don't feel they're getting it, how can we address that? So I think that's absolutely critical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sebastian?
Yes, thank you for that answer. Could you tell us about your thoughts on consolidation between District 65 and 202? And then as a follow-up question, what information would you need to ultimately make up your mind on that decision, if that were to be a topic that is brought up?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a topic that only recently came to my attention. So it is one that I think I would need to learn more about, to have more data to see, because, I guess, just kind of instinctually, there certainly seems to be a benefit to the economies of scale that could be gained. However, I could very easily see on the flip side, doubling the size of something, but still keeping the same number of board members responsible for it could perhaps cause issues. So it's something I'm very interested in learning more about, because that's the type of district I grew up in, was K to 12. So that was very normal to me. However, I would just simply need to see more data and understand the pros and cons.
Great, thank you. So why District 65? Of all the ways to get involved in public service and out of all the races on the ballot, why 65?
Yeah, well, I think my direct connection to the kids, in working with so many District 65 kids as coach and commissioner, just a real strong belief in public education, that, just through my upbringing and my family, not just my mother, I have multiple aunts in education, including one that was on the board at Naperville in the 90s. So what I've seen recently, really, I think the sharp decline in enrollment is what really encouraged me to get involved. I believe strongly in public education, and it doesn't say, it doesn't sing a pretty song to me when people are speaking with their feet and leaving the district. I think that weakens the system, and I want to see it return, or I want to see it strengthened. I think you might still be on mute.
Yes, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So there are 3 incumbents that you're running against. What is one decision that they've made that you agree with? Oh, it's 2 incumbents. My apologies.
Yeah. I did like recently, they made some changes to the grade structures, both for K through, I think, how did it break down? K to 2 and 3 to 5, or K to 3 and but I really liked what they did with that. It seemed to be something that was very progressive and more understanding of children's milestones and what it benefits in terms of how they are analyzing or assessing, that's the word I was looking for, how they are assessing children's development and progress. So I was definitely a proponent for that.
Amazing, thank you for that. And then finally, we'll do the last 2 questions. What is your number 1 priority for this upcoming term? And what specifically would it take to make that happen? So we'll bundle those into one question.
Okay, my number 1 priority. Whew. I think it's a lot of what we've been talking about. I think my number 1 priority is I'm going to have to combine turning the tide of the enrollment drop. I want to restore, just the percentage of school-age children in Evanston that are attending District 65 schools, and I think that that can be done with the combination of restoring of fiscal responsibility, balancing the budget and not overspending, and I hope that this can be done through a community approach. That's one of the strengths. That's one of the greatest things about Evanston is our culture of cooperation, and there's just been some mudslinging lately that just makes me very sad. So I think that we can return to a more cohesive group just by seeing kids return to the same schools and going to school with each other and having parents step back together again. So yeah, I guess that's my 1, if you can call that 1.
Sure. Okay, I think, was that the last question? That's what I have as the last.
Yes, I believe that's the last question too. So thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on and talking to us. This is definitely going to help out, the entirety of the DPOE and Evanston residents, as they make an important decision for District 65 and District 62 or 202. My apologies. These races often are overshadowed and folks don't realize, that they're going on. And these are important positions. You all are making decisions that will directly impact our young people in Evanston. So thank you for taking a step into the race. We appreciate it. It's not easy to do. Both Claire and I have experience doing that. So, again, thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for being so accommodating of my schedule. Some, unfortunate things kind of moved things around for me last week, but happy this morning worked out.
Great. Okay, enjoy the day.
Great, thank you too.
Bye-bye.